Hi everyone, this is Jim Tolles, and today I want to talk about speeding up healing cycles. And I think it's important to remember in the spiritual path that we're all going to be doing a lot of healing. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you've done anything wrong or you've been wronged actively. It's just kind of part of life. That there are levels of healing that go on through all of us, whether it's kind of the deeper karmic healing that's happening or just healing old patterns that are no longer healthy. And when I say healing, it's not like fixing, right? The idea of fixing is there's something wrong with you and you have to address it and make yourself better. Right? These are more ego ideas where the ego is constantly rating and judging everything. So this is broken and I need to fix it. Healing really is coming more into that deeper space of acceptance and union of yourself. And the more you're actually in that space of acceptance and union, you also know what you don't need in your life and you can let it go. And so it's a much softer and gentler mindset that I want to encourage you to have around healing. Because healing in the spiritual path will come to everybody in multiple different forms, from somebody who has been raped and has some serious healing that needs to happen on multiple levels: heart, body, mind, soul, energy, all that sort of stuff, to someone who's just realizing that they've been kind of closed-hearted, right? And that's going to take its own type of healing. And, time doesn't really play into this either. So I'm using this whole speeding up healing cycles term very loosely, that it's an inner feeling. You feel this kind of inner speed where like there's this movement, this cycle that starts to increase and to go quicker as you start to move through old pain and start to release. So the time, I'm using this very loosely. I want you to hold this term very loosely, but it definitely can feel like it's sped up when you start to clear away some of these big core issues. So a core issue is like a major keystone or cornerstone in a dam. So there's tons of blocks in this dam that's holding back the energy that's you. And we often don't even really know that we have all these dams there until some external pressure helps to either enhance our own energy that starts to push against the wall more, or it just kind of shakes us up in a way, like maybe like an earthquake. Usually a lot of people come to the spiritual path through great pain. That's where like things get shooken up. That's like the earthquake. And so they get in a major car accident, they find out they have cancer, they lose their loved one. It could be a child, it could be a spouse, partner, anything along those lines. Then suddenly like the walls get shooken up a little bit and some of that inner water starts moving, that flow. You start to realize how temporary life is. And you start to see where you're restricted. And another idea may come up where there's no longer the satisfaction in being restricted in this way. And you're like, I need to change. And so in one of my blogs, I talk about the process of releasing pain from the energy body, which is really from the whole body, because we heal on every level, including energy. And energy seems kind of out there at first for a lot of you, but as you go, as you work through the mind and the heart and the body, most people usually start to understand that there's stuff that's more subtle, that doesn't really, work in the body and the mind and the heart in the way they thought. But, that can come later for some of you. For some of you, this is already very present. You're just very energetically aware. Maybe you take on other people's energy too naturally because you're way too open. Lots of different things like that can happen. But in that process of healing, where I outline some of the phases that people go through in the spiritual path of releasing something. Once you've released something major, there's a life that really kind of ignites, a life of its own, and this process of opening. And it wants to move, and you usually at that point want to keep moving, because when something major, some major core fear is moved, or sadness, or old attachment, something is broken down and left. Now energy is coming through that dam, that water, right, starts to move through that dam and starts to move into other phases of your life, and things start to spring up there, new opportunities, things that you know that even could exist. And that sort of kind of wonder and curiosity and excitement propels many people into doing more, healing on that level. And some of it will be more active. And so suddenly you're getting lots of new tools. Finding spiritual teachers or self-improvement stuff or spiritual practices, religious practices, whatever, finding a spiritual community to support you in this, and all the ways that you can continue to grow there with having new connections, new relationships. And that speeds up other things. And other things in that dam start to break away and be eroded by that moving water that keeps flowing through. And you start to see things in new ways. And that can get things moving even quicker. right? It's one of those things that snowballs. Maybe the avalanche is a better metaphor, right? You know, that little snowball with that intention to change something, to be more spiritual, to live with more love in your life. It starts to get a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, and pretty soon there's this avalanche of energy that's moving through you. And it's an interesting space to suddenly be in, because it's going to be brand new for most people, because it's not really something people talk about in society. In society, we live in a very stagnant place, right? We think we're growing and changing, but having new technology is just like having new toys. They're just things. What's going on is a deeper integrity and awareness of yourself. That's real growth. And so you'll feel yourself being called to this growth. You'll know it. You'll feel it in your heart that maybe the only reason you're looking at this video right now, it's like something got you about, wow, I do need to heal, and I like the idea of speeding it up. And spiritual teachers can play into that. And I use spiritual teachers in a lot of ways. One of my blogs is called What is a Spiritual Teacher? And I kind of break them out into different segments and levels of intensity. And, you know, it's all kind of made up, but I hope it gives you an idea that everybody has something slightly different to offer. And for me, I offer it on multiple levels. I can be with the heart, body, mind, soul, you know, that whole space. And spiritual teachers like myself, we help speed up things because we take you into the discomfort. That's usually where most people have to go, because that's what love does. Love shows you where you're not in love. And by showing you that, by bringing that intensity of combined awareness to it, things can start to change. But that also requires a dedication to standing in discomfort. This is one of the reasons I love the physical practices of yoga, you know, because it often teaches people to be in spaces that are really not comfortable. I don't care how long you're in like Warrior 2. Like there's a certain point where it's just not comfortable, no matter how practiced you are with it. And you're like, the leg is shaking, your breathing is getting a little unstable, and it's teaching you about how to be with discomfort. Now, certainly there are ways that we come out of discomfort, but in the society, I can't really talk as much about that because that's what most people already are trying to get to. They're trying to get past the discomfort to get to, like, you know, the gravy train immediately. And that's what we've been doing with all the sugar and relationships and sex and constant music. Like, people have got their ears full of noise constantly to, like, drown out discomfort. So they don't have to feel it or think about it, but it's still there. So that's why when I do a lot of these videos and my blogs, like I'm always talking about discomfort, you know. It sounds pretty awful, I'm sure, to most of you. And that's the point. Because I want you to know that that's part of life and it has to be embraced. And until you embrace that discomfort, that internal pain, you can't release it. It just sits there. And the spiritual path takes you right through it. And when you speed up the cycles, it's taking you to more and more pain, which also increases the need to have a strong spiritual practice around yourself. And I love the Buddhists. I think they're great in how they talk about the three jewels of Buddhism, with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And while I don't know the exact meanings, it kind of roughly translates as the teacher, the teaching, and the community. And having those three things around you helps to support you when you go through these cycles that are speeding up. And as you speed up, more life opportunities come to you, and that becomes even more amazing. Like, wow, look at all this stuff. This is amazing. I didn't know I could connect with somebody so deeply in that way. I didn't know I could do this type of work and love it so much. I didn't know how closed my heart was, and I want more. And so then your own intention keeps going, and so like more bricks in the dam keep breaking out, so you have more water, more rushing through. And for those of you with a lot of pain, though, this is where like that community, that teaching, that practice, that teacher becomes so important to help hold you through. That healer. I think a healer can be another one that's a key piece that I just kind of swapping that out with the teacher on that, to help you have the support you need to be in a lot of dark places, because you're not supposed to suffer per se, right? You're not needlessly here to just feel awful all the time. And I think it's important to have that support around you to love you and to help add a little extra energy again to help move through whatever this new muck is. And then something else will come up. And then something else will come up. And that becomes life. It becomes a softer rhythm the more we just kind of are naturally open ourselves. And awakening really is like the whole dam burst and everything's turned up, which is why many of you are just exhausted. You're just out of energy because this is all encompassing. This is all of you. coming into awakening, coming into life. And this is also why, having that support network can be so important, because while our energy and our connection to God can ultimately do it all, ultimately God is in all things anyway. So God is in the teacher, the teaching, and the community, as well as God is in you. And I've got another video about what is God, and I encourage you to look at that, because this is another term that a lot of us think we're talking about the same term, but we're not. And it's important to understand where this is coming from when I talk about it. And it's not important that you accept my definition. What is important is that you start to look at your definition and understand that. But going back to the speeding up the healing cycles, the teacher does have an effect in that energy. And the community can have an effect, right? All these different spiritual tools can help accelerate and move things quicker. And that may feel really uncomfortable. And sometimes it may also feel really good, and it's important to hold the really good feeling stuff lightly. Because if you hold on to a relationship like this, it can't get away. But it's also dying because it can't breathe in a fist. So we learn to open up our hands to the wonderful things that come to us, and allow us to let those go, as well as we receive the difficult lessons and allow us to let go. And the more we sit in this space of openness, the more our natural flow happens that clears out the old junk, and it's just helping us to be us, to be any way that we really want to be and what feels true to us. So if you're interested in more of what I'm up to, you can check out spiritualawakeningprocess.com. I hope you've enjoyed this video on healing.